Welcome back to Project 613. Today we begin learning all about the Jewish festivals, all about the Yom Tovim, and we start with Pesach. There are specifically 4 mitzvot that we are going to learn today that have to do with Pesach, some of the details of which are applicable to all of the festivals as well. Interestingly, all 4 mitzvot that we are going to learn today are learned from the very same verse, from different words in the very same verse. The first mitzvah that we have today is the actual mitzvah that we are obligated to rest from doing work on the first day of Pesach. The verse says, Ubayom harishon mikra kodesh. On the first day of the festival of Pesach, which is on the 15th of the month of Nisan, it should be a holy day. It should be a mikra kodesh. And our sages explain that this is a reference to the obligation, the positive obligation to cease from performing work. Which type of work? The same type of work that we are obligated to rest from on Shabbat and on Yom Kippur. We also have to rest from on a Yontif, which this is the 39 categories of forbidden work, with a few exceptions, as we will see soon. The next mitzvah that we have is the corresponding negative prohibition, where the verse says, Kol malacha lo ye'aseh b'hem, you shall not perform any work. So just like we saw with Shabbat and with Yom Kippur, there is both a positive mitzvah to rest and a corresponding negative prohibition of not performing work. So too with Pesach. We have the positive mitzvah of resting and the corresponding negative prohibition of not performing work. Then the verse says, Ubayom hashvi'i mikra kodesh. On the 7th day should be a holy day. That means that on the 7th day of Pesach should be considered a Yontif as well, a day that we rest, that we do not perform work, a day that's like Shabbos, that we refrain from 39 categories of forbidden work. And the next mitzvah that we have is the corresponding negative prohibition for the 7th day of Pesach, where the verse says, Kol melacha lo ye'aseh b'hem, you shall not perform any work. So again, with the 7th day, we both have a positive mitzvah to rest, and as well as a negative prohibition of performing any work. As mentioned, all of this is all included in one verse. The very same verse also gives us one of the major exceptions and the differences between Yontif and a regular Shabbos, and that is that on Yontif, certain activities that have to do with cooking are permissible, as the verse continues and says, Kol ach asher ye'aseh l'chol nefesh, hu levado ye'aseh lachem. Anything that's needed for the sake of eating, that could be done. Now, this isn't a blanket allowance for any type of activity that has to do with preparing food. There are specific things that we are allowed to do to prepare food, such as cooking itself, which is permissible on Yontif. Lighting a fire from scratch would not be allowed, but if you have an existing flame, you would be allowed to cook on it, and many other details as well, all explained in Shulchan Aruch and in the tractate of Beitza in the Talmud. When the verse tells us, and when we learn in this mitzvah, that on the first day of Pesach is considered a Yontif, and on the 7th day is considered a Yontif, of course this is referring to the way it is in the land of Israel. But in the diaspora, since we know we have 2 days of Yontif, and we're going to explain and learn more about that when we learn about the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, we actually have 2 days in the beginning of Pesach and 2 days at the end of Pesach. And in effect, when the verse says on the first day should be considered a Yontif, really it's a reference to the first and second day in the diaspora. When it says the 7th day, that is a reference to the 7th and 8th day in the diaspora. Only in the land of Israel, you still only have 1 day in the beginning and 1 day in the end. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.